One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Carl Jung's words may sound unsettling in a world that often equates leadership and maturity with flawless performance and superficial positivity. We're accustomed to seeing leaders as stoic paragons of wisdom who have all the answers. We believe these individuals are born with an almost mystical ability to command, strategize, and inspire. Yet Jung suggests something far more nuanced and arguably more powerful. True development, be it personal or professional, emerges not from a facade of perfection but from a deep willingness to confront our inner darkness. Perhaps leadership is not as much about telling others what to do as it is about understanding ourselves so intimately that our very presence becomes transformative. Could it be that wisdom and authority spring from acknowledging our struggles rather than denying them? Imagine the typical image of a strong leader, someone who speaks confidently, issues decisive orders, and remains undeterred by doubt. Conventional wisdom tells us that people who exhibit this sort of unwavering certainty should naturally rise to the top. Yet how many of us have encountered these unwavering individuals in real life and sensed a gap, an absence of genuine empathy or depth? Jung's perspective encourages us to question whether the outward show of certitude might mask unresolved vulnerabilities lurking beneath the surface. He would likely ask us, are we confusing an unexamined mask of confidence with the authenticity of a wise elder? Is our pursuit of professional maturity shortchanged by our own reluctance to see the anxieties and imperfections within ourselves? These questions may unsettle our usual assumptions about leadership development. They open a pathway to a fresh understanding that maturity is not a linear progression measured by titles or accomplishments, but rather an evolving relationship with one's inner landscape. In the coming moments, we will delve into the stages of professional emergence, guided by Jung's emphasis on wisdom and the archetype of the wise person. We will consider how contemporary neuroscience and modern psychology reinforce this message, revealing that the most effective leadership, both in organizations and within our personal spheres, flows from a thoughtful integration of our conscious aspirations and our unconscious drives. By the end, you may discover that true leadership is less about commanding and more about connecting. The real question remains, will you dare to look within, embrace your shadows, and allow yourself to emerge as a truly wise leader? In early life, many of us are taught to value outward achievement above all else. Excel in school, grab the best job opportunity, climb the organizational ladder. The assumption is that competence, drive, and raw ambition naturally produce effective leaders. By the time we reach our 20s and early 30s, the prevailing narrative suggests that if we just work hard enough and stand out, we'll become the kind of person others want to follow. Our social media feeds reinforce a glossy vision of success, featuring images of triumphant entrepreneurs and motivational quotes that imply positivity alone will carry us to the summit. Yet if we pause and consider the fullness of our experiences, contradictions begin to surface. We might reach a point of professional stability, perhaps a management role or a specialized position that offers some authority, and still feel an unsettling restlessness. Society's perspective often tells us we should be satisfied, that we've arrived at the place we aspired to. But the deeper self seems to say there is more to discover, more to learn, more to acknowledge, and more to integrate. This tension can produce anxiety, sleepless nights, or even a sense of isolation despite outward success. These contradictions highlight a common misconception that pervades both organizational cultures and our own personal belief systems, that leadership emerges naturally from a sequence of accomplishments, and that once we achieve a certain role, we have nothing left to confront internally. This overlooks an essential aspect of Jung's view, Our psyche is not a machine that automatically generates wisdom once certain goals are met. Rather, our psyche is alive with unconscious components, archetypes, and a shadow self that needs tending and integration over the course of our life. Jung challenges the notion that professional maturity can be simply grafted onto an external resume. Instead, he posits that a genuine leader emerges from a deeper alignment, a confluence of conscious aims and unconscious wisdom, of persona and shadow, of outward ambition and inward reflection. If we take this to heart, the seemingly mundane frustrations and identity crises many experience in their 30s, 40s, or even 50s are not just obstacles but signals, portals to deeper self-understanding. They mark opportunities for transition from the ambition-driven persona of our younger years to the more reflective, integrative stage of leadership development. This reorientation might require stepping away from superficial definitions of success and toward a more holistic, evolving identity. To understand this emergent identity in the professional realm, we can compare life stages. In the early years, our teens and 20s, we're gathering experiences, trying on different identities, shaping our persona to fit social and cultural expectations. We might be building careers, families, or forging academic paths. The primary tasks here often involve learning the ropes, conforming enough to gain acceptance, and showcasing competence. External validation becomes paramount. We want to prove ourselves worthy of responsibility. Yet Jung points out that beneath these outward pursuits lies a psychic tension. There is always more to our psyche than what we choose to display. The shadow, those repressed or unacknowledged facets of our personality, lurks in the background, influencing behavior in subtle ways. Neuroscience bolsters this idea by showing us that our brains remain highly plastic. We adapt to our environments, internalizing beliefs and strategies to cope with immediate demands. In a professional setting, this might manifest as adopting the dominant corporate culture, mimicking the styles of established leaders, or suppressing traits deemed undesirable. While these adjustments can help us navigate early career hurdles, they come at a cost, a potential gap between our authentic self and our perceived persona. As we accumulate experiences, we enter a transition phase. This might occur in our late 20s, or perhaps not until well into our 40s. It varies widely because personal growth doesn't follow a strict timeline. We start questioning the roles we've taken on. We wonder if the persona we've been projecting truly represents who we are or who we might become. In Jungian terms, this is often the time when the unconscious begins sending stronger signals in the form of dreams, unexpected emotional reactions, or a lingering sense of dissatisfaction. Such signals often nudge us toward a deeper exploration. Am I living according to someone else's script? Am I motivated primarily by external markers of success? If so, what happens when those markers no longer satisfy me? For many emerging leaders, this questioning can spark an internal crisis. They may already hold significant responsibility, teams to manage, projects to lead, but they start feeling a discord between their outward persona and their innermost values or emotional truths. Modern psychological research refers to this as a stage of self-authorship or a shift toward individuation. It is at this juncture that unresolved inner conflicts often intensify. Perhaps we discover we've been suppressing empathy in favor of efficiency, or stifling creativity to maintain a safe status quo. Neuroscientific studies on emotional intelligence suggest that leaders who become aware of these internal dynamics can harness both empathy and strategic thinking more effectively. Rather than ignoring emotional cues in the name of rationality, they learn to integrate them, thereby making more nuanced and sustainable decisions. This transformation is not instantaneous. In Jung's view, it's akin to embarking on a quest, an archetypal journey in which we must encounter the unknown within ourselves. The wise person archetype beckons us forward, representing a future possibility of becoming a leader guided by deep insight and genuine compassion. Yet this archetype can only be activated when we pass through a kind of crucible, wrestling with our shadow and reconciling polarities. Ambition versus humility, security versus risk, tradition versus innovation. In leadership terms, it might mean recognizing that success isn't purely measured by quarterly results or external accolades, but also by the human relationships and moral frameworks we cultivate. Neuroscientific research indicates that leaders who demonstrate reflective self-awareness exhibit more flexible thinking patterns, higher resilience under stress, and stronger interpersonal rapport. Real-life examples illustrate this process in powerful ways. Consider a high-level manager who excels in crisis management and is rewarded repeatedly for her ability to put out fires. Over time, she finds that her quick decisiveness has created a work culture where subordinates hesitate to express concerns. She's lauded by upper management but struggles with high turnover rates in her team. Late one night, reviewing a sudden resignation letter, she's struck by a realization. Her outward efficiency masks a fear of vulnerability and a deep need for control. This moment could usher in a profound transformation if she engages with it consciously. By confronting the shadow aspect, a fear of being perceived as weak, she has an opening to develop a more inclusive leadership style, one that honors the perspectives of her team. Through honest self-examination, therapy, or coaching, she might integrate this awareness into a new leadership identity, guided by empathy as much as by strategy. In parallel, a mid-level professional aspiring for executive roles might hit a wall of exhaustion and decide to take a sabbatical or a new position with less prestige. Friends and colleagues question the move, but something inside him knows that the frenetic climb no longer aligns with who he is becoming. During this period, he encounters Jung's writings, attends workshops on emotional intelligence, or immerses himself in mindfulness practices. Scientific studies increasingly support the benefits of mindfulness for leaders: cognitive flexibility, stress reduction, and enhanced empathy. Slowly, he realizes that the wise person archetype within him has been overshadowed by external validation needs. Reconnecting with deeper values allows him to return to the leadership sphere as a calmer, more assured presence, someone who genuinely listens and guides rather than commands. Such transformations lie at the heart of psychological depth. For Jung, shadow work, the process of illuminating our dark corners, is indispensable. We all project aspects of ourselves we deem unacceptable or unimportant onto others, often creating interpersonal tensions in the workplace. For instance, a leader who unconsciously fears failure might micromanage subordinates, attributing the tension to their incompetence. Another might harbor suppressed anger or resentment and unknowingly punish team members for small errors. By facing these disowned feelings, we reduce the unconscious pressure that warps our professional relationships. The wise person archetype, once only a faint whisper in our psyche, can become a guiding force for integrity and unity. During this process, the persona, the social mask we wear, also evolves. As young professionals, we may adopt personas that project confidence, efficiency, or deference to authority. These masks can be tools for survival in hierarchical systems. Yet as we move toward the wise person archetype, we notice that these old personas no longer resonate with our internal truth. We might feel a tug to drop certain pretenses or show more vulnerability in our interactions. Although this can be scary, especially in competitive fields, the payoff is enormous. A more holistic, genuine leadership presence that draws people in rather than pushes them through fear or duty. Within the unconscious, we also find powerful energies that can be harnessed for creative problem-solving and innovation. Neuroscience reminds us that insight often arises when we allow the mind to wander or incorporate rest and reflection. Jung's emphasis on the unconscious as a source of creativity aligns with modern studies showing that breakthroughs frequently emerge during states of relaxed attention, such as when daydreaming or engaging in unrelated tasks. This implies that the wise leader doesn't just grind through issues. They create an environment where intuition and creativity are valued. The unconscious is then no longer an enemy or a mystery to be avoided, but an ally that provides clues, inspirations, and warnings. In practical terms, integrating these shadow elements and unconscious insights requires self-reflection, dialogue, and often some form of mentorship or coaching. The leader who commits to this path might schedule regular check-ins with a trusted colleague to discuss not just surface-level tasks, but emotional responses and deeper aspirations. They might use journaling or therapy as methods to explore recurring dreams or strong emotional triggers. And crucially, they adopt the humility to admit they do not have all the answers, a hallmark of genuine wisdom. Contemporary psychologists like Daniel Siegel discuss the concept of mindsight, the ability to perceive the internal world of self and others. When leaders develop mindsight, they don't just see employees as cogs in a machine, but as whole human beings with rich emotional landscapes. This perspective fosters authentic team cohesion, enhances morale, and fosters ethical decision-making. Research by organizational scholars indicates that emotionally attuned leaders inspire greater trust and loyalty, qualities that reduce turnover and boost collaboration. These findings echo Jung's assertions about the necessity of psychic integration. The conscious and the unconscious, the shadow and the persona, the individual and the collective, all working in harmony. From a shadow perspective, we might notice how easy it is for fear, arrogance, or insecurity to derail even the best organizational strategies. A leader might stand before a workforce, rolling out a grand vision, while internally grappling with doubts about whether they are worthy of being at the helm. If these doubts remain unconscious, they can fuel erratic or defensive behaviors. Conversely, leaders who admit their uncertainties, both to themselves and judiciously to their teams, can transform vulnerability into a foundation of trust. The wise person archetype doesn't demand that we become omniscient. It asks that we remain open to our full humanity and harness that awareness for collective growth. Unconscious elements can also surface through unexpected emotional surges, anger at a minor logistical setback, or disproportionate anxiety over a simple presentation. Instead of labeling these reactions as unprofessional, the leader who values psychological depth interprets them as signals of deeper layers. Could the anger reflect a history of feeling unheard, or a fear that one's authority is being undermined? By inquiring into the root cause, the leader transforms a disruptive moment into an opportunity for self-discovery and improved relationship dynamics. In parallel with Jung's theories, modern applications in leadership development increasingly focus on emotional intelligence, mindfulness training, and coaching methodologies that encourage reflection on personal narratives. Psychologist Brené Brown, for example, highlights how embracing vulnerability is crucial for authentic leadership. This overlaps substantially with Jung's emphasis on shadow work. Acknowledging and integrating what we'd rather hide can liberate enormous psychological energy and heighten our wisdom. Organizational cultures that adopt these principles create spaces where open dialogue and self-awareness are respected, enabling leaders and teams to co-evolve rather than stagnate. Research findings in neuroscience further validate these approaches. Studies using functional MRI scans show that when individuals cultivate mindfulness and self-awareness, They exhibit increased activity in the anterior cingulate cortex and prefrontal regions responsible for emotional regulation and decision-making. Leaders who practice such reflective techniques are often better at regulating stress, making them resilient in high-pressure situations. They also exhibit greater empathy due to enhanced activation in brain networks involved in social cognition. When Jung insisted that true wisdom emerges from engaging all levels of the psyche, he was essentially pointing to what science now verifies. Consciousness is multi-layered, and balanced leadership arises from harmonizing these layers rather than ignoring them. All this points to a profound conclusion. Integrating shadow, evolving one's persona, and drawing upon unconscious wisdom is not just a theoretical exercise. It's a psychological transformation with tangible benefits in the workplace and beyond. The wise person archetype, once a mythic figure in stories of great sages, kings, and seers, becomes an internal guide for the modern leader. By recognizing that real authority grows in tandem with self-knowledge, we tap into a deeper reservoir of resilience, foresight, and empathy. Expert perspectives on leadership development increasingly echo this sentiment. Renowned executive coach Marshall Goldsmith emphasizes that what got you here won't get you there, highlighting the need for continuous self-examination. Organizational psychologists have discovered that the best leaders are those who combine decisiveness with an agile mindset that remains open to new information, including feedback on their own limitations. They suggest practical interventions, structured reflection sessions, 360-degree feedback tools, and mentorship programs that go beyond skill building to address personal growth. These frameworks align seamlessly with Jung's call for individuation, the path toward becoming a whole person whose outer leadership reflects inner integrity. Studies in positive organizational scholarship, led by researchers like Kim Cameron and Jane Dutton, show that fostering a culture of high-quality connections and meaningful interactions enhances collective performance. Leaders who embody Jung's wise person archetype typically facilitate such connections effortlessly, because their self-awareness and authenticity set a tone of sincerity and openness. Followers sense that these leaders are not just ticking boxes of politeness, but genuinely invested in the well-being and contributions of each individual. Psychologists examining moral leadership argue that the integration of unconscious material reduces ethical blind spots. Shadow elements, when unchecked, can manifest as unethical behavior, power abuses, or manipulative tactics. By consciously engaging in shadow work, leaders become more transparent and less prone to acting out hidden agendas. Therefore, wisdom development under a Jungian lens not only benefits individual transformation, but also safeguards the integrity of entire organizations and communities. In modern applications, businesses increasingly see leadership development as a holistic process. Corporate training programs now incorporate sessions on self-reflection, guided journaling, or group dialogues that encourage vulnerability. While once dismissed as too soft for the corporate sphere, these approaches yield measurable outcomes such as higher employee engagement, reduced turnover, and more innovative thinking. The science of well-being also correlates a sense of purpose and psychological integration with reduced stress markers. This convergence of ancient wisdom, psychological theory, and contemporary research underscores that the wise person archetype is not a relic of myth, but a living possibility within us all. Returning to the quote that began our exploration, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. We can now appreciate it in a new light. Jung was not merely championing introspection for introspection's sake. He was drawing attention to a principle that applies directly to leadership development. If we gloss over our weaknesses, blind spots, or hidden motivations, we cannot truly lead. We might fill a leadership position, but the depth and gravity that engender loyalty, innovation, and genuine respect will elude us. On the other hand, when we consciously engage with our inner world, our unspoken fears, biases, and aspirations, then leadership becomes something larger than a job title or a skill set. It becomes a calling to embody wholeness and inspire others to do the same. The journey from external achievement to the emergence of the wise leader archetype is an ongoing process. By now, we have traced the arc from early life stages preoccupied with proving ourselves, through a middle phase of questioning and reorientation, to an evolving point where the unconscious can become an ally in shaping a more integrated leadership style. If nothing else, this exploration should offer hope that leadership isn't limited to a select few with special traits. Rather, it is available to anyone willing to engage deeply with the psyche, confront the shadow, and cultivate a genuine persona aligned with inner truth. In a world often overwhelmed by constant change and uncertainty, each of us stands at a threshold. We can continue believing that leadership is about external validation and authority, or we can step into the transformative realization that true leadership springs from an evolving dance between consciousness and unconsciousness, between aspiration and humility. The wise person archetype beckons us to see our professional roles not as endpoints, but as platforms for ongoing psychological growth. It challenges us to hold space for complexity, to guide others with empathy and vision, while continually refining our own inner landscape. Such a path may be more demanding than the quick fix of superficial confidence, but it yields a far deeper reward: the emergence of genuine wisdom that can serve us, our organizations, and our communities, no matter the challenges that arise. Here, then, is the final offering. Leadership, at its core, begins with the courageous act of self-inquiry. Our earlier assumptions about polished perfection dissolve, as we realize that true leadership is shaped by the interplay of light and shadow within us. Instead of only focusing on our outward performance, we begin to appreciate the significance of our inner narratives, our hidden fears, and our emerging capacity for empathy. Far from diminishing our effectiveness, these deeper layers grant us a profound sense of authenticity that naturally resonates with those we lead. May these reflections serve as both a call and a comfort. You do not have to be superhuman to rise as a wise leader. You do, however, need to be fully human, willing to face and eventually embrace the shadows that accompany your unique gifts. In doing so, you embark on the true journey that transforms your perspective on leadership from a mere role or function into a lifelong path of conscious growth. The questions remain as they should. Will you answer the call of your own inner wise person? Will you allow your professional journey to weave together competence and compassion, authority and vulnerability, self-knowledge and social responsibility? In taking this step, you join countless others, past, present, and future, who discover that, indeed, real leadership transcends the titles we hold and becomes an enduring legacy of wisdom shared.